Good evening, scholarly folks of the interwebs. I'm Alexa, the resident ookie spooky girly, and today we're exploring some schools that are haunted by more than just angry teachers and perfect grade panic. Sadly, I don't have any experience with ghosts in the schools that I attended. My elementary schools weren't haunted to my knowledge, and the high schools that I personally attended were both way too new for any spirits to have taken up, residence. But let me know in the comments if y'all have any good ghost stories of your own to share. I would love to hear them. Honestly, I don't miss school. It was never my forte. But I am grateful for the English teachers that inspired my creativity that led to who I am today. So, thank you, Mrs. Wooldridge and Mr. Rivers. And on that note, welcome to the top 5 haunted schools you should never attend. Number 5, Gettysburg College. Gettysburg College, which is a 4-year undergraduate liberal arts institution, is well known for its strong academics as well as its reputation of having one of the most haunted campuses in America. The college was founded in 1832, prior to the Civil War, and boasts numerous ghostly legends. John, a student who graduated in 2004, has spoken out about an encounter he had in 2003 when he was working as a secretary in Penn Hall, saying that he took the elevator and when it opened there was a full working Civil War hospital in the basement with lights, people walking around working, and soldiers. All he was able to do was stare as the doors closed, and when they opened the next time, it was a regular basement. So Penn Hall, being the oldest building on campus, was built in, 1832, and actually served as a hospital for wounded soldiers as well as a morgue during the 1863 Battle of Gettysburg. The hospital is described as having been extremely gruesome, and soldiers were often fully conscious during their ghastly operations. According to a story found in Mark V. Nesbitt's Ghosts of Gettysburg, John is not the only one to have witnessed this scene. 2 campus administrators in the 1980s took the elevator down to the basement and were unexpectedly met with the views of gruesomely injured patients. I'll pass on that basement, mostly because I've always been creeped out by them, but this isn't the only haunted building on this campus. Stevens Hall, which was built in 1911, was originally used as a prep school for girls who would later enter the college, and is allegedly the most haunted dormitory on campus. One year, hockey player Amanda Schlager was the only person living in Stevens Hall before the semester started, and would often hear footsteps down the hall and above her, but when she looked around the next day, there was no one else in the dorm. So while you might be able to write off that instance as a simple prank, that's not the only ghostly take from that building. This building is famous for being haunted by a ghost named the Blue Boy. The legend claims that one freezing winter night, a few girls snuck an orphan into their room to help him stay warm. When a house mother unexpectedly came in, they shoved him onto the 3rd-story window ledge to hide him. But when they went back to let him in, he was nowhere to be seen. It was never clear what happened to him, but the apparition of his blue face pressed against the window, as well as strange noises throughout the dorm, have horrified residents ever since. And finally, there's been some one-off instances of spooky encounters in Huber Hall as well. Other students have described ghostly encounters in their first-year dormitories. One woke up one night to a pressure on her chest and heard someone dragging across the floor. She closed her eyes, and when she opened them, every single item on her and her roommate's desks had been thrown onto the floor. Years later, someone who lived in that exact same room experienced a night where his alarm clock reset itself during the night. It was blaring the alarm even after the student pulled it out of the wall. I can handle a decent amount of ghost behavior, but I like my sleep too much for that. My first roommate can vouch for the fact that I will growl at anyone who wakes me up. From experience. Number 4, R.H King Academy. So this academy, also known as RHKA or King, is formerly also known as Scarborough High School. Scarborough Collegiate Institute and R.H King Collegiate Institute is a secondary school located in Scarborough, Toronto, Ontario, as part of the Toronto District School Board. This school was established in 1922 and then became a collegiate in 1930, renamed in 1954 and again in 1989, so it's had a bit of a complex. Fun fact, it was the first secondary school built in Scarborough, and boy oh boy is it home to some spirits. To my knowledge, ghosties have been observed in many areas in the school, and I think I'll start with one of the most common ghost locations, the school library. So a former vice principal recalled seeing something move through the book stacks when he was all alone in the library after school and swore to never be alone in that library ever again. Other teachers have discussed seeing weird shapes out of the corners of their eyes, expecting a rogue student, but no one was there. At the main entrance to the library, there are scanners that go off to count the number of people going in and coming out, and they tend to go off at least once a day with no rhyme or reason. Keeping with the book theme, let's move on to the English department book room. It used to be the 2nd floor stands for Gym 3, a place where students could watch various sporting events, but was repurposed to fit the changing needs of the school. My old high school got rid of its library to keep up with changing needs, so it's healing my soul a little bit knowing not all schools are like that. Several years ago, a former teacher was alone in the building, and as she was leaving the book room, she heard the sound of a ball bouncing coming from Gym 3. But when she went to investigate the noises, she found the gym vacant and engulfed in darkness, and didn't hear any sounds that could have been anyone running away really quickly to not get in trouble. And the final book-related room before we move on to other places, the Heritage Room located on the D floor is suspected to be home to some residents. When the school was first built, the Heritage Room served as the library, but when the new library on B floor opened in 1975, the room was left vacant. Some students report a feeling of being watched when they enter the room alone, while others report smelling a woman's perfume in one specific spot of the room and not finding the smell again once they walk away. Many even report feeling poked or tapped on their backs and not being able to find the cause. One theory is that an old librarian spirit still lies in that room today, watching over the students, which makes sense and is kind of sweet. The other has to do with the staircase behind the room, where allegedly a caretaker met an early end. Whether he took his own life or it was a freak accident depends on who you ask. Speaking of spooky hallways, which are a good ghost hiding place, an old boiler room hallway on B floor used to lead to a beautiful ornate auditorium that was torn down to make room for a parking lot. Yeah, it hurt my theatrical soul to say that. While students often use the hallway to exit the school during the day, on multiple occasions, the night shift security has been alerted by motion sensors going off. Upon searching the hallway, they see an open door and hear rattling, but they don't find anybody. Former students have recalled an uncanny feeling while walking down that hallway, and even mentioned hearing footsteps behind them, and when they turn around, no one's there. To my knowledge, the most frequent area that ghosts like to hang out in the school is the A floor War Memorial, which honors students of R.H. King who fought in the Second World War. The most notable encounter happened to a janitor working the 12 to 8 shift in the 90s. At around 4 a.m., as he was walking down that hall, the lights turned off, and when he sat on the ground, he felt someone touch his left shoulder. Suspecting it was another caretaker, he asked them to stop, and immediately the lights came back on. And what do you know? There was no one else around. Traveling over to the C-floor science rooms, another former member of the late-night custodial staff was using a chair to hold open the glass door that led to the stairwell to make her job easier. And after a few minutes, she heard the door close and noticed that the chair had been moved. She didn't think much of it, thinking the chair had just, moved from gravity, so she propped open the door again using the chair and returned to her work. And just a minute later, she heard the door slam again and noticed that the chair had been moved further away from the door, so it wasn't gravity this time. Starting to get more suspicious, she put the chair back in front of the door and again returned to work. But only a few minutes later, she heard a giant crash and saw that the chair had been flung across the hallway and the door was closed. Ah, poltergeists, those mischievous buggers. Gotta love them. Number 3, New York University. Knowing now that so many old universities are extremely haunted, I'm kinda glad I went to a fairly new place for my education, since I'm kinda susceptible to ghosts and whatnot. Kicking this school off with the most famous haunted building, Brittany Residence Hall. Allegedly, when Brittany used to be a hotel, a student named Molly died in the elevator and continues to haunt the space, and specifically her elevator. A former student named Claire was the unfortunate recipient of Molly's wrath when attempting to return home very late one night. She entered the cursed elevator, and when it got to the 8th floor, the elevator shook and dropped, and stopped on the 5th floor. No one had called the elevator, so it stayed there for a minute, the doors opened, closed, and then it went down to the 2nd floor like nothing had happened. And she's not alone in her tale. I found many similar tales across the internet today, and elevator technicians don't have any kind of practical reasoning for the elevator's wrongdoings. Over in Gramercy Green Residence Hall, a student named Hillary woke up one night in her dorm to the sight of a pale figure next to her bed, and originally assumed it was her roommate rummaging about, until she saw her roommate sleeping in her own bed out of the corner of her eye, and the spirit was still lingering. Thankfully, she didn't do anything to anger the spirit, but simply turned her back towards the ghost, put her comforter over her head, and managed to go back to sleep. Founders Residence Hall is home to strange noises, creaks, doors opening on their own, and lights that turn off and on, but also change settings on their own. It sounds like the classrooms may be safe for this university, but maybe stay off campus and not in residence to be certain. Number 2, Transylvania University. It's a private university in Lexington, Kentucky that was founded in 1780 and was the first university in the state. Transylvania's name, meaning across the woods in Latin, stems from the university's founding in the heavily forested region of Western Virginia known as the Transylvania Colony, which existed briefly between 1775 and 76 in south and western Kentucky. I promise I'm not about to tell another vampire or Dracula story, I swear. Granted, if y'all would eventually like me to talk, ad nauseum about vampires, let me know in the comments because that's something I feel like I could chat about for hours. So the oldest university west of the Allegheny Mountains, TU is home to the tomb of Constantine Rafinesque, a terribly unpopular botany professor who also served as a French and Italian tutor, and had quite the affair with the college president's wife before being banished. Angry and bitter, legend has it that he cast a spell on the university as he left town and died of yellow fever, and now his ghost still haunts its grounds. Students have reported seeing the ghost of a student who allegedly took their own life, and a male who would stand at the foot of their bed and vanish before their eyes. That's not exactly anything I want to see when I'm trying to sleep. Just me? Number 1. Marblehead Schools in Hellmouth. Okay, technically nowadays the town goes by Marblehead, but that name had me doing a double take. With my love of Buffy, I've been led to believe my entire life that a major Hellmouth was in Sunnydale, California, not Massachusetts. The definition of a Hellmouth is a property representing the entrance of Hades. So the middle school girls' locker room in this school is rumored to be haunted by a man that passed away in a motorcycle accident. Reports indicate that the high school was built on an ancient burial ground, and eyewitnesses can attest they have seen poltergeists, apparitions, orbs, a gray lady, and the mystique of not being wanted roams across the hallways. Maintenance records claim that the elevators in the schools don't work properly, and the building's fire alarms randomly go off. There are also reports of UFO sightings in Marblehead's middle school, but they've been mostly scrubbed from the internet. I swear I tried to find them. And that brings us to the end of our time, and yeah, I'm still good on the not missing school front. Granted, I wouldn't be opposed to creeping through some abandoned schools. If y'all enjoyed my ramblings today, could you help us out by giving this video a like, subscribing if you aren't already, hitting the bell for more haunting goodies from us here at Top 5 Scary Videos, and I'll see y'all next time, you lovely spooky people.